heard that knitting podcasts are out, which makes it the perfect time to record one. Whenever I notice I have a pile up of projects that you haven't necessarily seen and otherwise would not be shown on the channel, I like to do one of these episodes, usually 3-ish times a year I've been doing them. And it's just a recap of what's been going on so you can get a little bit of inspiration. I get to sort of benchmark projects that I've been working on. It's a good opportunity for me to sit, and I encourage people to do this. Sit and reflect in what you've made over the past year, if not more, outside of just specific hobbies. What have you made with your hands, period? Because I think a lot of people would be surprised by how much they've actually made. It's easy to be like, oh, I haven't made a single sweater this year. But it's like, yeah, but you made like 18 birthday cards by hand or fixed up that shelf in your house. All right, let's start with what I've actually been finishing. So first one, and this was a formal video, is the Nocturnal Jumper by Saskia & Co. I am still very happy with this project, but I also know I am not going to be wearing it that often. With the fact that it's 3-color color work, it is thick and it is warm. I'm still very content with this project, and there is very little at this point that I would change about it, but sometimes when I wear a sweater over the course of multiple months or years, I start to figure out little things of, oh, I would do that different, or there's this weird, really specific thing about the fit that I might want to adjust. So we'll see if anything pops up in the future, but for now, I am still very content with this project. I think the pattern was written well. Something I really enjoyed doing was the corrugated ribbing, and it's something I'd like to incorporate on projects in the future, introducing 2 different colors on a ribbing section. I think it's just a fun little detail that feels somewhat minimalistic, but also adds an element of whimsy. For this, I used Drops Extra Fine Superwash Merino, which has historically been my go-to for a lot of colorwork sweaters, just because I have really sensitive skin, and it's one of few yarns I have been able to work with that does not set off any amount of itchiness to me, which is greatly appreciated. It ages really well, it holds up, and is affordable, so that's kind of why I picked it for this. My only complaint, and I've mentioned this before, about that is it can feel a little plasticky, like the yarn, since it's superwash merino yarn. Not enough to bother me. For example, fully synthetic yarns tend to be too much for me in that arena. But this is a good special occasion sweater. I have a hard time letting myself knit projects if I feel like I'm only going to be wearing it a couple times a year, and while I can wear this throughout the whole year if I want, realistically, it's so warm that I am not going to be wearing it very much. It's pretty much going to be worn on days where I'm outside, maybe going on a walk in place of a jacket. That's what I like my really warm sweaters to serve as, because it doesn't get cold enough where I live to justify wearing really heavy jackets, nor does it justify me wearing a sweater and a jacket. So I can put on sweaters like this in place of wearing a jacket, which I love doing. I have been looking at making other Saskia & Co patterns. I love so many of her designs. They're just beautiful and very much so my style. The caribou one is extremely enticing, but I personally love, from a process point of view, making stranded colorwork sweaters in the round, top down, circular yoke. So fun for me to make. Speaking of, this is my Northern Augustin sweater, and I still need to weave the ends in and block it, but I'm counting it as done for the purposes of this video. I have already made one of these sweaters, and I made a second one. And that's because the first one I made, I accidentally used 2 different yarns. I used Drops Extra Fine Superwash Merino and Drops Daisy, which is their non-superwash variety, but they have a lot of the same colors for both. So they had this beigey color in both, and I did not realize that I owned both yarns. I had them in the same container. They were unlabeled, and not thinking about it, I just used both of them in the sweater, and I used both of them throughout the entire sweater. So it wasn't just like, oh, all of it was the same yarn except for the sleeve. It was like, nope, this section of the color work was done with it, this section wasn't. I was all over the place. And I didn't think it would bother me that much, but now that it's starting to show its age a little bit, it does bother me a teensy bit. I think anyone who's not a knitter would not be bothered by it or wouldn't even notice, which is why I'm going to offer it up to some family and friends and be like, hey, does anybody want this? Overall, really happy with this. It's extremely similar. This just knits up so quickly. I did adjust the pattern to accommodate using a 4.5mm needle, because I think the pattern is for either a 5.5 or a 6mm needle. There's actually quite a few adjustments, and I think I list them all in Ravelry under the notes for the item, because I also adjust the color work. The color work in her pattern, the chart, it does not include this little like drop in between here, but I just I like the look of that, the radiating kind of drops going around. It's fun. So this one is just done, and it's because I love, it's beautiful, and I have a pair of red pants that I cannot find and I need to find. I don't have that many places to hide stuff in my apartment, so I don't know how I would have lost it. But a pair of red pants that I wear with this around Christmas season, and it is my favorite winter outfit by a mile. So those are my 2 knit projects, and then crochet. My mostly finished crochet project has been my crochet spider web. I have a whole video showing how I made this. Same with my Halloween sweater and my original Northern Augustans. I have videos for everything, y'all. Wow, that's so weird. It's weird to have a sort of video diary of my crafting experience over the past 2 years and being able to look back and be like, I have a whole video about that project. So it's not just remembering the time I made that project. I can go back and look and see. So weird. Anyways, this crochet spider web, I still love it so much. It's a fun, simple Halloween decoration, and I have plans to make a future video talking about specifically DIY decorations, typically around knitting and crochet, for people that live in smaller spaces like me, or if you just don't want to be storing a ton of decorations, period. That's where the spider webs really come into play for me as being so awesome, is it lasts longer than the cheap stuff you can get in the store. It has more meaning because it was something that was handmade. It's great for using up yarn that is just white yarn, any white yarn in your collection. And it's fun, simple, like it's just a good project all around and a good piece of decoration to have because it can take up a lot of space or a little space depending on how much you want when it's actually up, and then when you're storing it away, it does not take up that much space at all. And to go with the spider web, I ended up making 3 polymer clay spiders and doing a resin UV curing coating on top of them. So they seem like pretty industrial and they're gonna last a long time. And I really loved making those spiders because it was not only fun to work with clay and do some 3D art. Hi, I got this especially for you. But the spiders were also really awesome because I was able to use them as weights for the spider web. That's the trick. When you make these crochet spider webs, if you ever decide to make one, the trick is getting the points of tension because you need to pull it in all these different spots. So when you make little weights, it adds so many more spots where you can have that tension without needing to actually attach it to a wall. I'm still really content with that spider web. Something else I like about the spider webs that I do compared to some of the other ones I've seen online and why I decided to make my own is a lot of the ones I've seen online and a lot of the tutorials show you how to make these really perfect looking spider webs where it's just an even distribution of stitches the entire way around and you can follow the pattern, and that's great and it really fits into some people's aesthetic. But for me, I really like having one that looks a little bit messier because it feels more natural to me. It feels like if I was a spider, this is the kind of spider web I would make. I wouldn't be making the overly perfect ones. I would be a little bit free-spirited with it, and I would make mistakes and go back and fix them. So it feels more like it's telling a story. Okay, so that's it for knit and crochet, but I do actually have other crafty finish objects that are worth sharing because they have really been just feeding my creative energy more than anything else. Something I've noticed myself doing is transitioning slowly knitting and crochet into being basically the only hobbies I engage with nowadays. And I don't want that to be the case. And now that I've noticed it, I've been sort of pulling back because they've always been my main hobbies, but I've always done other stuff too, which kind of bolsters my creative energy, and kind of boxing myself into just knitting and a little bit of crochet has been really limiting for me. And I've been needing to explore other areas and just have fun and craft again. All right, the first one is a sewing project, and it's the Skyline dress. This was fantastic for using up my scrap fabric. I am so thrilled that I got to use up as much scrap fabric as I did, but also I was so surprised with how much scrap white fabric I have left over. I thought, oh, this is great. It'll use up all my scrap white fabric. It did not. It didn't, no. I could make another one of these. I could make another 2 of these. And I have had a hard time motivating with sewing in the past, so as much as I would love to make more of these, and I say I would like to make more of these, I don't know if I actually will. But I do really want to because I have a bunch of blue scrap fabric and red scrap fabric, so I'd like to make a blue version and a red version. But for now, I do like my white version. I have been wearing this to work and out and about and just around the apartment because it's so comfy. The Skyline dress pattern is one it's really easy to follow. That's kind of Sydney Graham's whole thing. She's the pattern designer. And she has so many different hacks that you can see as well, like the Skyline top or doing different versions of the skirt. One thing I did adjust about the pattern is adding a lot more volume to the skirt. So I think I have about twice as much circumference in the bottom part of the skirt than the pattern would call for. And I love that. I love feeling like a princess and having a really flowy skirt, and it's so fun. This was also a very exciting project because it was my first time using my serger, my new serger. I finally pulled the trigger on buying a serger. I had been going back and forth on it for about 2 years, and I love it. I love it so much. I went to a local sewing shop that a friend had introduced me to, and she had mentioned to check out their refurbished machines. So as soon as I decided I was ready to get a serger, that was my first move. So I went to this local sewing place and said, hey, I'm looking for a serger. I'm gonna turn it over to the experts. I've done a little bit of research. What do you think? Oh my gosh, they were so helpful. Everyone there was so sweet and so helpful. When I was at the store, they were saying, okay, here are our machines that we sell brand new. Here are the benefits, pros and cons to each one. And they were saying, which level would you be more inclined to purchase? And I said, this one, the mid-range one, because I cannot afford a $2,000 machine, but I can afford more than the $300 machine. And he said, great, okay, so that high-end one over there, the one that's too expensive, we actually have a refurbished version of that. It's 20 years old, but we're fixing it up. It's in really great condition, and you can get it for a little bit less expensive than the mid-range one here that you said you're cool buying. So that is an option available to you if you would like. I loved. So I got a Baby Lock Imagine serger. It is air threading, which was the most exciting part to me, and auto tensioning, because those are the two issues that I've heard most people have with their sergers. Everyone complains about how hard it is to thread a serger, and I was getting a little bit scared. I also worried if people were being a tiny bit dramatic, but I believe them. I believe that they're tough to thread. And the second thing I've heard people complain about is tensioning them. So getting one that is extremely easy to thread due to the air threading capability, and one that auto tensions was a big deal. And it is so easy to use. I love using it. I used it for this entire project. Sans a couple spots where, I had to use my regular sewing machine, and I'm so sorry to my regular sewing machine, but I basically only want to use my serger now. It's so easy to use. It's way more relaxing to me than using my regular sewing machine. So to sort of test out the durability of seams, because I've heard people all over the place talking about how durable serger seams are, and it completely depends on the project, the fabric, the material you're using for the thread, how you're using it. It's so many variables go into whether or not it actually is a durable seam. I personally would prefer in future projects not to rely on my serger to make an actual seam, but as a way to finish edges and prevent fraying in a way that's a little bit more clean. And also to work with stretch fabrics, because I've really enjoyed doing a lot of stretch fabric projects in the past, and I've always used my sewing machine, and I haven't had too much issue with that, but I can see this one just being a lot easier. So anyways, this dress, all the seams here are serged seams. I did not sew any of them. So this dress is an experiment in how well it holds up, because I need to see for myself how it holds up. No amount of people telling me how it'll hold up will make it sink in as much as seeing it myself. So the only thing on this dress that I actually used my sewing machine for was anytime I used bias binding. I also noticed that I much prefer doing gathering with hand sewing as opposed to using my sewing machine to do it. I find hand sewing to be fairly relaxing compared to using my sewing machine. So for all the gathers, I just did that by hand, and that was pretty easy. I am very happy with this dress. I think it looks really cute on me, and I feel like a princess when I wear it. Another very quick project was just me testing out my serger and using up some remaining scrap fabric. I just wanted a place to store a lot of my fabric scraps. So I seamed together all of these panels with my serger and then just folded over on the top, sewed it down, put a little string through it. Easiest bag ever. This probably took me 15 minutes to make. And now I have a place to store my scrap fabric. I also just love the look of patchwork. Even if it's something as simple and minimalist as this, I like patchwork so much. All right, we got some hand sewing projects too. This one is just me adjusting a sweater that I already own. So this sweatshirt did not have any of the white detailing on it that I added onto it. I famously can't stand embroidery, but this was just so simple and mindless that it was actually fun to do. But I really like this sweatshirt. I think it's really funny. It says my tummy hurts, but I'm being really brave about it. And if you know me, that's just how I live my life. My tummy always hurts, and I'm being brave about it. But I noticed I wasn't reaching for it as much, and I didn't know why exactly. So putting it on and trying to really figure out what about this is not clicking for me. And it was the cuffs on the sleeves. I realized that the cuffs were too tight and they just felt really weird, and I didn't like the friction it was causing on my arms. So I ended up just removing the cuffs altogether because I have really short arms. Now it is the perfect length for me, and just did a cute little embroidery whip stitch all the way around. And on the collar added just a little sewn in detailing, following the actual stitching in the collar that was already there. I would love to do more projects like this where I'm taking something as simple as just a sweatshirt I own and adding a little bit of personality to it. I also have been wearing this a lot more because it's far more comfortable to wear. I love when just a little change, it just takes a little change to make something amazing. All right, something else I have is Happy Birthday Bunting. Haha, here's the happy. I've been enjoying trying to make reusable decorations for several years now and have been doing it very slowly but surely. And this is something I would like to have for the rest of my life. I love that if someone comes over and it's their birthday, I can just put this up and it's just as simple and easy as that. And it stores so flat and easily. It's not a huge burden or thing I have to deal with. And it's special and it's freaking adorable too. So I made this by taking, oh my gosh, how am I even going to describe this? I have storage shelves in my apartment and I don't like seeing everything on the storage shelf. So I bought covers for them, but the covers were the wrong size and I didn't return them for some reason. So now I have these covers that don't fit anything I own sitting around in my apartment. What am I supposed to do? Get rid of them? Sell them? They're such a specific item that I don't think selling them was really much of an option. And they were made of this white canvas material. And I figured, you know what? White canvas, that's going to come in handy sometimes. I will craft with that. And craft with it I have. So I cut out all these little shapes from that canvas material. And it's a very sturdy canvas. The second thing I did was you can buy this fusible substrate that can turn your fabric into a iron-on patch. So I ironed it onto some blue fabric, cut out an H, peeled off the back layer, ironed it on directly onto here, and that's how it's staying in place. And it's held up really well. Like it's not coming off. I did plenty of testing to see how strong it would be, and it's a pretty strong bond, which I appreciate. So that's how I did all the letters. And then I took my small embroidery floss collection and picked out the more fun colors and just did a simple whip stitch all the way around. I was working on this in the spring and a friend of mine actually helped. We went to the beach together and I was working on this and she asked if she could mess with it for a little bit. So she ended up doing one of the letters herself, like doing the stitching around it. And my husband did also a little bit of one of them. So it's kind of fun having a thing that multiple people kind of worked on, if even just a little bit. And then just made some bias tape and sewed it across the top. So it sounds like a lot of steps, but this was actually really easy to make and it took a long time. It took several months, but it was a nice calming project. Doing the whip stitch took me about 45 minutes per section. So it was nice to be able to just take one. Like I'm going to the beach with my friend. I'm going to take one or two of these and bring it to the beach and just work on them slowly. So it's nice that it's just a thing that I could chip away at over time. And having all the colors is just extra fun as well. Really proud of how these turned out. Okay, my next project. I was watching a video by Cheyenne Barton and love her channel. In the video, she was making her own journal and she was showing how she did it. And watching it, I was thinking, that's easier than I thought it was. And I have all those materials on hand already. And I don't have anything to do today. So I took like 3 hours and made a journal. It's really awesome. I sewed the pages together with my crochet thread. Spilling stuff. And I just used regular printer's paper for the paper in here. Yeah, for the cover, I had an empty Eggo waffle container, so I just ended up cutting it out, and now I have an Eggo waffle field notes journal. This is something I would like to make more of in the future. I have been using field note journals for a while now. I just finished filling out my first one. So I have my regular journal that I keep at home, and if I'm going on a longer trip, I'll bring it with me. But for stuff where I'm going to work or I'm going to hang out with a friend, smaller little excursions, I like to keep one in my purse that I can just grab and use at any time. These are really fantastic if you're someone that already enjoys journaling or you're someone that doesn't want to be on their phone as much. Something I had been afraid of for a long time is being by myself at a restaurant. I had never done that before. I don't mind being a lot of other places alone, like going to the movie theater alone, not a big deal. In fact, if you're new to going places alone, start by going to the movie theater alone. I know some people that have some anxiety about being alone and not having anything to do or someone to talk to, go to the movie theater. No one's going to see you. It's a dark room. No one cares that you're alone. Plenty of people are there alone. That is a good beginner's place to go alone. But for me, the advanced level was eating at a restaurant alone. I was really worried about that because I also didn't want to sit in a restaurant and just be on my phone the whole time, because then I'm not present. So I went to Spain with my husband and I wanted to eat during the day, so I had to go to restaurants and sit by myself at a restaurant, and I happened to have my field notes journal with me, so I just wrote in that the whole time, and it was fantastic. I got to write about what I was doing, what the food tasted like, what the atmosphere was like, anything that popped in my head. There was a moment when I was in Spain where I saw some pigeons on the ground and I was kind of drawing and sketching out the pigeons. So it was a nice way that actually got me to be more present without all the pressure of, I just need to sit here and observe everything. It's like, no, I'm going to have fun and chill and write and sketch. And then I was meeting up with a friend of mine to go to the zoo, and I took the bus, and I was getting there about a half hour before she was going to get there. So I sat and I just, drew like the people that were walking by, or there was a statue of a bison out front, so I was sketching out the bison. So these are really great for people that are really fiddly with their hands, but you don't necessarily want to bring like a full-on project with you to do somewhere, and you don't want to be on your phone. Field notes journals, great option. I can see myself making more, and I've been saving a lot of our food packaging that comes with this cardboard material. Yes, the official term is cardboard. I work in the industry, I promise you. I'm not mistaking it. Your Amazon packages, those boxes, those are also cardboard. It's referring to the paper material. But when you see it in boxes, when you order something that's shipped to you, that's actually corrugated fiberboard, and it's a specific type of cardboard. But this is also cardboard. Anyways, I've been saving my cardboard packaging so I can have various ones, because I just think it's fun to have a little waffle. And it's such a good upcycling project. I mean, an Eggo waffle container has never looked better or been more functional. Oh boy, let's push everything out of the way. And the last item in my finished objects is this ottoman. I did not make the whole ottoman, but the cats, this is their favorite scratching post, and it's been scratched to hell for years now. And for the past 4 years, I've been telling myself I'll get around to fixing it. And this week I finally did. I am so happy with how this came out. I really enjoy visible mending. I had so much fun with this one. I loved picking out fabrics and doing different shapes. It was really funny to do a heart. I kept doing rectangles, and at a certain point I was kind of like, why am I doing only rectangles? I guess I could make these whatever shape I want. So I made a little heart one. That was really fun. Definitely a hard project on my fingers with the needle and thread and the pressure needed to get through this material. It's worked out really good. I also have accepted the fact that this is the cat's favorite scratching post, so it's likely that they'll continue scratching at it even if I do patch it with a material that they don't like the feeling of as much. So I've kind of accepted the fact that it's okay if they scratch this too, and I will just keep adding patches to it. And it's just gonna be a fun little living piece of furniture. I have a couple pieces of furniture in my home that I call like living furniture, where it's continually evolving and changing based on the life around me. So it's nice having pieces of furniture that have a bit more personality and life to them. And my husband was looking at this today and he was like, I actually really like the patchwork look, which was a surprise to me because he normally likes more, I'd say, clean cut styles. So it was kind of fun that he was like, yeah, I think I really like the patchwork look on here. The thread I used for this is the same thread that I had used for that purple sweatshirt, the My Tummy Hurts sweatshirt. And it's what I use in place of embroidery floss for most projects. I hate working with embroidery floss. It is not a material I enjoy. I find it gets too tangled. It's too soft. I hate having to split threads. I do not want to split up the threads. That is not fun for me. So embroidery floss I kind of use if I have to, but for everything else I use crochet cotton. It has proven to be incredibly easy to work with, more cost effective. I can just have it in white and use it for everything. When I want it to be more statement-y or more durable, I hold it double because it's a pretty thin material. I cannot advocate enough for the use of this. If anybody else can relate to not liking embroidery floss as a material, this is a great alternative that's just a little easier to use. So that's it for finished objects. Something else I did recently was I was on a walk with a friend of mine, and as we were walking, we saw a sign that said estate sale, and kept walking until we saw the estate sale, and it was big. It was the full garage, and it was the inside first level of the home, and then the homeowner came by and asked us if we had checked out the basement yet. And we were like, no, there's more in the basement. That's so cool. There were other people around, so it wasn't just like someone asking us to go into their basement. It sounds sketchier now that I'm saying it out loud, but the vibes were very not sketchy. So I went into the basement, and there was this huge utility room filled with these tall racks stuffed with fabric. And I was devastated to learn that that was actually the 4th weekend in a row they had been running the estate sale. And she said, you should have come earlier. We had so much more at the beginning. And they also said that they started with 5 different sewing machines. And by the time I got there, they only had 1 sewing machine left. So there's so much that I wish I would have seen right away, but I am really glad that I got to see it, period. It's probably for the best too, because I've been trying not to buy fabric until I use up most of my own stash, but I did see 2 fabrics at the estate sale that I really did like. And it was just so cheap. So I got these for, I think, $2 each. This one is probably 3 yards of this fabric. I have washed these both, and they still have that old lady smell. But that's okay. I will keep washing them. I don't know what I want this to be yet, but I kind of want it to be a dress. And the second fabric I got, I am so in love with, and it's this. I would love for this to be a pair of pants, but I don't know if I have enough. So I will need to play around and take a look and see if I can actually get a pair of pants out of this. If I can't, then mayhaps a pair of shorts or a skirt. I just love that. It's very trendy right now for this lighter blue with the burgundy stripes on it. This also feels very Sydney Graham coated, like something she would or has already worked with. It's hard to find good fabrics, y'all, but I still haven't consistently proven to myself that sewing is something I will be keeping up with at any specific pace. So I don't feel like I am justified in purchasing a lot of fabric yet, because I genuinely don't know if I'll ever use it. On to whips. I have a number of whips, and they're all sitting behind you, so if you could move out of the way, that would be great. This basket is a mess. Oh my gosh. Project number 1, I am not going to show you too much of because it's the video I'm hoping I release next, but it is to do with the crochet spirals. I have talked with my sister. She had told me what she wants these spirals to be, and I am going to make them for her into the item she requested. So I am glad to finally have a purpose for those crochet spirals. They've just been sitting there for ages. Speaking of sitting there for ages, I keep bringing this up every time I do one of these little chats. This is a lap blanket, a quilt that I have been working on, and I made the mistake of deciding I want to do all the stitching by hand, and it turns out I do not have a lot of patience for that, and it's not an activity that I super enjoy doing. After I just got done saying I find hand sewing to be more relaxing. For some reason, this is the exception. I just cannot motivate myself to do it. I'm so close to being done. I just need to do 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 more lines of hand stitching. That's all. That's how close I am to being done with this. So my goal is to have this project done by the end of the year so that I don't have to carry it into 2026. This is my original Polaroid sweater. This is a self-drafted design, and I have since made an updated version of this that is the one I will be wearing moving forward. And I knew I wasn't going to wear this version anymore, so I asked my mom if she would want it, and she was like, yes, please. So I am working on it for her. It is slow going because I'm using 3.25 millimeter needles to work on this. It's such a fine gauge, and it's a very wide, oversized sweater, and I also need to make it really long. So it's going to take me a while, I think, to finish this one up, but I am slowly but surely making progress on it. I also need to buy more of the yarn. I ended up undoing, because it was a whole body of a sweater, right, when I initially finished it, but when I started with the new yarn, because I had finished this like 2 + 3 years ago, maybe 2 years ago, 3? Doesn't matter. So when I started working with the new yarn on the body, having the original white yarn on here too, you could really tell the difference between the new and the old yarn. So I unraveled the whole body back up to the blue stripe and started the new yarn from there. That way the difference wouldn't seem as stark. I'm hoping to have all of my gift projects done by the end of the year. So those spirals, this project, and there's some other ones in here too. They're like, they're kind of half gift projects where most of them are things that I started for myself, decided I didn't want, and then asked someone I know if they would want it, and they said yes. So it's not like everyone's been hounding me for gift projects. I just have been offering. The next project is probably semi-recognizable. It's the Midnight Forest sweater that I have been working on. This is going to go to my older sister, and I ran out of yarn, but I finally got around to ordering some more. I actually might need to order more. Is this all I have? Oh my gosh, that might be all I have. Okay, I need to order more of that and more of the alpaca. I'm so close to finishing this one. I just have the cuff of one sleeve to do and then the other sleeve, and it's a very thick gauge. I'm so close. But it's just been a little tough because I have had no energy for the past few weeks. I know it looks like I've done a lot, and I don't want to discount that. Yes, I've done a lot, but from my perspective, compared to how much I'm usually making and working on projects, I haven't done much of anything. In fact, I spent 3 weeks in a row not touching a single knitting needle, a crochet hook, like no projects at all for 3 weeks. And that's why there was recently a big gap in the videos I've been making. I had slipped into a pretty intense depressive episode, and I had no energy to make anything, no energy to record anything. I just sat on the couch and stared at the wall and did the bare minimum every day for 3 weeks. Now that we're getting to the point of the year where I have so much planning to do, it's the holidays coming up, I gotta see family. I don't have to see family. It's not in position to see my family. It's just like there's planning that has to be done around that. So we're getting into a point of the year where I tend to just naturally get a little bit more stressed, and I was putting a lot of pressure on myself to finish all of these projects in time for me to see my family, which is literally 2 weeks from now. I'm leaving to see my family. There's no way I'm going to be able to finish that Polaroid sweater and the spirals and this sweater, and I'm supposed to do a full sweater for someone that I haven't even started yet. And I also know that these people wouldn't want me to work on these projects if they stress me out, so I've just kind of set everything aside and given myself a break for the past few weeks. And I'm slowly but surely starting to be ready to work on stuff, but I'm trying to be very careful not to jump fully in with both feet, cranking through stuff, because I'm going to get burnt out so fast. People who also experience regular depressive episodes can probably relate to this, but you don't just snap out of it one day. It's a slow process of working your way out of it that takes several days, maybe several weeks, and I am not quite finished yet. Like, not to the point where I want to be diving in deep on stuff, especially as we're moving into a more stressful time of year. I need to be really on top of that. I think my top priorities in the next 2 weeks is going to be hopefully finishing this sweater and finishing the spirals. But the sweater I'm working on for my mom and the one for my friend, those are both going to have to wait a little bit. All right, what else do we got here? These are tough. These are my Frogger finished whips, which doesn't happen too often. Usually if I start a project, I'm pretty good about finishing it. But there's 2 that I have not been working on. So this one is the Semper Slipover by, I think, the Knit Pearl Girl. And I've done this before, and I did it in the past with Drops Extra Fine Superwash Merino, but I think I made the same mistake that I made on my Northern Augustins and didn't properly label my yarn when storing it. So I accidentally mixed up the superwash and non-superwash wool, and I need to redo this. I'm also not convinced about the fit, so it's not that big of a deal, and it's not that difficult either. It's a very easy project to work on. I've just been working on other stuff, so this has not been a priority, but I need to remember to unravel this at some point in time and work on it again, because I would like to have more sweater vests in my collection. Another one I am probably going to frog, and I hope that I find the energy to start over at some point in time. This is the Dorney sweater by Rebecca Clow. The pattern's really great, and I ended up deviating from the pattern in one way that I am regretting. And that is, I didn't do regular knit stitches over here. I did twisted knit stitches. I did not know, but I have now learned that when you do a twisted knit stitch in this style, it has a tendency to lean a certain way. So if you can kind of see in this middle pillar here, this knit stitch line should fit perfectly in between these 2 cables, and it does not. It leans way more towards this side because I did the twisted knit. But if I had done a regular knit stitch, it would sit very lovely in the middle. It's the kind of thing that no one would really notice if I went to finish up the sweater, but it bothers me just enough for me to want to start this over completely. Oh, I have not been mentioning yarns, have I? Let's do a quick recap. I think it's just because I've talked about all these projects before. Okay, let's quick talk about yarns. This yarn is Drops Alpaca. This one is Drops Air Held Double. This one is Drops Extra Fine Superwash Merino and Drops Daisy. And this one is Drops Cotton Merino. You can see a theme, can't ya? All right, this is the last WIP that I am working on. This is Malabrigo yarn of some sort. The tag is lost. I am really bad about that. I'd like to say I'll get better at it, but I make no promises. I kind of am who I am at this point. This was going to be a pair of socks, but when I mentioned it, I got enough comments from people saying, no, don't make socks with that, which is very common. If you tell anyone in the knitting community that you're planning on making a pair of socks and you list any yarn, period, you will get people telling you not to make socks with that yarn because it'll wear through. But that's kind of the thing about socks that you knit by hand. They're gonna wear through, and then you fix them, you darn them, and it's fine. But as I was working with this yarn, I was noticing that it is indeed fairly delicate, and I would need to patch it up a little bit more than I am willing to. And I just love the color of this so much that I want to have something made with these. So instead of doing socks, I'm doing leg warmers. I keep this in my work backpack because I take public transport to get to work most days, and when I'm on the bus, I like to work on this. And as far as knitting, crochet, making plans go, I have one plan, which is to make a Brady loop sweater for my friend. I am very excited because I want to have one of these sweaters too, and I'm excited for us to have matching sweaters. She has told me what yarn she wants. I am going to start on it very soon here, and I'm really looking forward to working on that project. And I think it's going to go faster than expected. Mary, I can't believe you're already scratching at the ottoman. I just finished this yesterday. And one more project I have for this year is my husband has specifically requested that I make a cover for our air conditioning unit. We have a standing floor unit for our air conditioner, and it lives by the window in our bedroom. It has a big hole at the top that the cats can very easily fall into and stuff can fall into, and you don't want stuff falling into it. It's like an 8-inch diameter hole, which is usually attached to the window, but we only need the AC unit about 3 months out of the year, and the other remaining 9 months, it just kind of sits there. So he has asked that I make a sturdier cover for it so that the cats can kind of get on top of it without falling into the hole, and nothing else will fall in the hole, and it'll look a little bit nicer than the sheet we currently have draped over it. So I'd like to make a quilted cover for it. That could be pretty cute. Mary, come here. If you're gonna cry... So those are my projects for the year. The ones I am working on and need to finish up, my top priority for the remainder of 2025 is really going to be finishing up the stuff I'm making for other people. I would like to get those done and out of the way so that I don't have to keep thinking about it anymore, because I do feel really quite guilty when it takes me a long time to finish a project I'm making for somebody else. So that's going to be my top priority. And then I'm going to move on to other stuff. A big project that I would love to do, it's not a big project, I guess, but something I would like to do is work on a granny square sweater. That's something I've been thinking about for a while, and I just have not prioritized it, and it's something I would like to start on soon. So that's another project that hopefully will be coming soon. And that's kind of it for stuff I've been doing and working on and finishing. You know, lots of stuff going on. I always feel like I don't do that much and I don't work on that many projects. And it's kind of nice to sit everything out. It's proof to myself that, yeah, you kind of do work on a lot of stuff, you crazy person. And that anytime I feel insecure about the amount that I do, is completely made up in my own head. And I guess it's not as much that I feel insecure about the amount that I do. It's that I have such a drive to make and create things all the time that it's painful when I can't be doing that as much as I want to. So it's nice to have that reminder as well of, no, you actually are making things, but you also have to have a job and live a life and be social and do chores. So there's only so many hours in a day that we can actually put towards crafting and making stuff. Sad, but it is what it is. So that's it for all the crafty updates. And if you are just here for that, thank you for joining. You're super awesome. I will see you next week, where hopefully it'll be a project video. Fingers crossed, wish me luck. I might also temporarily switch to doing videos every other week for the rest of the year, just because I just have had so much going on. If you also like talking about movies, because that's something I do a lot here, and TV shows, I also want to do an update on those. So I want to talk about the movies that I have seen recently and some quick thoughts. It's 3 movies and 3 TV shows. The first movie is Honey Don't. The plot is very difficult to describe, but at its most basic level, it is a young female private detective investigating. There's a lot of other stuff going on, but that's kind of the core of it. Honey Don't, the trailers that I saw looked so intriguing. I was very excited for it, and my interpretation of the trailers is that it would be an atmospheric mystery with maybe some psychological thriller elements tossed in there. And I was really disappointed by the movie. The plot was so confused. It's like they kept changing their mind on what they wanted the plot of the movie to be every 10 minutes. And it was jarring to watch. They brought up so many wild and interesting ideas only to never revisit them again. They brought up kind of at one point a little bit magic. I'm pretty sure it was drugs, but I'm like, are we not going to return to the magic that you brought up? No? Okay, cool. The mystery element of it was really disappointing, and it was extremely sexual, which I should clarify. I've talked about this before. A movie having overtly sexual themes and tones to it is not inherently bad. It's very divisive because some people don't like that in their media, and that is more than acceptable. That is a boundary that is very reasonable. Some people do like it in their media, and they feel that it really does add something to it. And then for some people, they don't care about sexual elements. Like, it doesn't affect them the same way that it might affect me. I fit somewhere in the middle of all the extremes where I think it can add to a movie, like in Deadpool, for example, the opening scene to Deadpool, the montage where he's getting closer to his love interest. Extremely sexual, but it made sense for the plot, it made sense for the character, and funny. There was humor in there too, and it showed the passage of time. It was a great example of show don't tell, and the sexual elements were very important to getting that point across. In Honey Don't, the sexuality in there, due to the way it was filmed and the way it was edited, I have no other interpretation than they did it for shock value. When they would switch to a very aggressive sexual scene, it was coming from a scene that was very opposite to the tone. And so they were doing it, and you can tell from the camera angles and where they cut stuff off and how quickly they switched stuff and the music involved. You could tell from everything in it that they were doing it to shock you. I don't love that. I also didn't feel like it was important to the plot. You could have made it important to the plot. I don't think they did a good enough job of justifying its existence in the movie. And it was also too much for me. It was too sexual to the point where it was straight up. So I was not the target audience, but I also don't think it was a great movie. One thing it did have was good acting. There was really good acting, and there was so much potential. The world that they built was interesting to me. A lot of the characters they introduced were interesting to me, but the way they wrapped it all up in a movie, I did not enjoy. People who might like Honey Don't would be people who really enjoy women-loving women, are not opposed to more aggressive and overt displays of sexuality in movies. And then if you also like sort of Wes Andersonian and indie style filming and cinematography. And then if you're also comfortable with movies that feel a little bit more like an acid trip, where you're like, what is going on here? Because some people are really comfortable with that and some people really are not. And they need a more structured plot to follow. Both are valid. Both are valid. Next up, The Roses. This was Olivia Colman and Benedict Cumberbatch. I really enjoyed The Roses. It's a rom-com with a little bit of edginess tossed in there. The general plot being it's following the relationship, specifically the marriage between two characters who moved from the UK to the United States. The movie specifically marries British and American humor within it. And so for that reason, it is very much so not to the taste of some people and very much to the taste of others. I personally love British humor, which is kind of a wild statement. I mean, how do you define British humor? But there's like differences between, in general, what is funny in British culture compared to what's funny in American culture. I think British humor tends to be a little bit more subdued. It can often be more uncomfortable. There can be a lot more subtext involved, where American humor tends to be a little bit more overt, sometimes more literal. So those are the definitions I'm rocking with. So I really like that. I also really like the actors in it. Olivia Colman is a fantastic actor. Benedict Cumberbatch, loved his acting. I was really obsessed with Sherlock growing up. So if he's in a movie, I'm down to see it. And me and my husband just had fun watching it. I thought it was really, really funny that their American friends as a, what was it? It was like a 10 years living in America gifted them a gun. They were like, happy 10 years in America, and gave them a gun. I know some people that would do that. The movie does progressively spiral out of control as you move further towards the end, but it's contained in a very structured plot. So the spiraling did not deter me from the movie at all. It was not a detractor. I think it added to the movie, and that was an important part of the tone, was that it was feeling more chaotic the further into the movie you got. My one complaint about the movie is there were times where it felt silly, if not a little flat, a little Hallmark movie-esque. And I think it's because, or at least I felt, like the filmmakers were not trusting themselves with the movie. It's almost like they didn't think people would like it, so they tried not to take themselves too seriously. Yeah, I think it's also fair to say I wish they would have leaned a little harder into the absurdity, because it gets progressively more absurd as you're watching the movie. And I think they almost could have done more of that. So I think you would like this if you like A Marriage Story and The Breakup, the one with Jennifer Aniston and Vince Vaughn. This one kind of fits somewhere in between those two, with a little bit more overt humor tossed in. It's simultaneously lighter and darker than both of those movies, but it's definitely sillier. It's sillier than those movies. And you also have to both enjoy American and British humor from a general perspective and be okay or comfortable with more absurdist humor. Next is Nosferatu. I watched it. A lot of people told me not to watch it because I was talking about movies in my Halloween video. I think it was the Crochet Spiderweb video. I mentioned that I hadn't seen Nosferatu and that I wanted to see it. And by the time the video had come out, I had actually watched Nosferatu. Nosferatu, if you're unaware, you have a woman in 19th century Germany that has a mystical connection to Nosferatu. I think the movie literally opens with her calling for someone. It's kind of like she was praying for an angel and this guy showed up and she's like, what the heck? This is not what I ordered. A lot of folks who commented predicted that I would not like the movie because it's overt sexual elements, and I had reprimanded overt sexuality in several Halloween movies, and you can go back and watch that video if you want to hear more about that. And it made sense with what I had said that they would think I wouldn't like it, but my issue with sexuality in film is, yes, I do get a little uncomfortable with it sometimes, but I'm also okay with it if it helps the movie be better, or if it's a core part of the movie. So as far as Nosferatu goes, I see it being a very divisive film where a lot of people really don't like it and a lot of people really do like it, and I think both people are right. I fit somewhere in the middle. I liked it. If someone I know wanted to watch it, I would watch again. So to me, I think the sexual elements worked in Nosferatu. And that's because it was a core part of the plot, and they made that very clear. And they also made it very transparent in the advertising for the film leading up to it coming out. So I was not surprised. I was well prepared. I knew what I was getting into. And that's why I had the issue with Honey Don't, is I was not prepared, and I don't think it made sense. I had the opposite viewpoint for Nosferatu. So I'm definitely not the target audience for psychosexual horror films, and some scenes in it did make me uncomfortable, but not enough for me to declare it a bad movie. I think the pacing in the movie, it was a little slow. Like some bits I was getting a little bit bored. For the most part, I was pretty engaged. It is a very long movie, so it's only natural there are going to be some parts that are a little bit boring. Some things it did really well is it was engrossingly atmospheric. The setting was 19th century Germany, and I think they did an excellent job of pulling off that moody gothic horror aesthetic. The sets were very interesting to look at. The costuming was very interesting to look at, and I am just a sucker for really aesthetic movies. So that definitely made it better to me and completely elevated the entire movie. I give it bonus points for having equality in the nudity. People who will like the movie Nosferatu are people who really enjoy that moody, atmospheric, almost gloomy setting and environment for the movie to take place. It also has a very contained plot line, so I feel like everything was very resolved. It was easy for me to follow what was happening. I still have a couple questions about stuff, but it's fun to have questions. I don't like when movies are all up in your face and you leave with no questions. It's kind of fun to have some things to think about afterwards. What'd you think of Nosferatu? What'd you think? Meow? She didn't watch it. She was sleeping. I will also say it wasn't very scary. I can understand if you don't want to watch it because it's, the psychosexual elements, but if you are okay with that, but you are a little bit of a scaredy cat and that's the reason you haven't been watching it, go ahead and watch it. It's not that scary. A less scary and less sexual alternative to it is Crimson Peak. I personally think Crimson Peak is a better movie than Nosferatu. Both are completely valid. Both are trying to accomplish different things, but Crimson Peak also has the really excellently executed atmosphere, setting, set design, and costuming. Crimson Peak is arguably scarier, but it's not too bad for scaredy cats. Like, it's not The Conjuring, you know? All right, onto the TV shows. This will be a little bit quicker. So I started watching Wednesday season 2. I still have one episode left, but my thoughts are as follows. I think Wednesday is meant for a younger audience, and I need to keep that in mind as I'm watching it. If you can't stop meowing, you're gonna sit here for a second, okay? Biggest complaint with Wednesday is the writing. Sometimes it's surprisingly good, but all in all, it is not that sophisticated because I feel like they're playing to a dumber, distracted audience. They keep repeating these very obvious points of exposition over and over again. It's like, yeah, you already told us this. Why are you repeating it? To the point where it got a little annoying. So they're either doing it on purpose so that people who are scrolling through their phone can also follow the TV show, in which case that's dumb, or it's really lazy writing. My other complaint with Wednesday, and I had this complaint with season 1, I can't stand any of the romance elements in Wednesday. None of them matter to me. I don't care. That's not why I'm watching, and I don't think they do a good enough job of creating a gripping and believable romance. They also have yet to do an important romance. The only romance that I care about is between Wednesday's parents, but they're already married and happy. I just like seeing happy couples on TV. All that being said, all those complaints being said, I'm still watching it. I still like it. I just have to turn my brain off a little bit, and that's fine. It's fun to watch. It's really fun to see all the visuals in it. They do go a little too hard on CGI, in my opinion, and I'm a sucker for practical effects. But the costuming is fun, the setting is fun, the aesthetics are very, very fun to watch. It's that like moody fantasy circus energy that they bring. I'm really enjoying. Of course, the original TV show is far superior. I have yet to watch the Addams Family movie from the 90s. I'm working on it. I will get to it. But so far, my favorite Addams Family anything is the original show from the 1960s. People who have not seen Wednesday, I think you would like it if you liked The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, Umbrella Academy, which I've actually never seen, but it seems like you'd like both. And then Riverdale season 1. Specifically just season 1. We don't talk about some of the later seasons. All right, the next TV show is Over the Garden Wall. I am still not done. I'm halfway through it, but I'm really enjoying it. I'm really enjoying the atmosphere and the aesthetics of it. I see what people like out of it, and I personally do enjoy anthologies or episodic TV shows where it's not one overarching plot line happening over multiple episodes. It's more contained, like each episode is its own contained storyline. It's also a very easy watch, and there's something kind of relaxing about it and also a little spooky. It kind of reminds me of the energy from Frieren, and if you like Over the Garden Wall, I would recommend that you give Frieren a try. It also kind of reminds me of Spirited Away. I think if you combined Spirited Away with Frieren, those two would be Over the Garden Wall. Yeah, I stand by that. Okay, and the last TV show that I have started watching is Summer Camp Island. My husband recommended this to me. It is the best TV show to fall asleep to. I used to watch Bob's Burgers when I had trouble falling asleep. I have paranoia issues, so sometimes I need a TV show on. And Bob's Burgers was a good one because it was very light, upbeat, happy. But my issue with Bob's Burgers is they oftentimes have a lot of really loud sounds happening every once in a while, and the intro song is so loud it wakes me up. I still love Bob's Burgers, but it's not like the best for falling asleep to. Summer Camp Island is extremely calming. The volumes are very mellow, and there's not a whole lot of extreme volume shifts happening during the TV show. The intro song is very gentle. The plot for Summer Camp Island is you have a bunch of children coming to a island for their summer camp. Their parents drop them off. Camp counselors greet them, say hi. Everything's looking pretty normal. And then as soon as the parents leave, the camp counselors are like, JK, we're actually witches and magic is real. And we're just going to have a really magical time at this summer camp. It's exceptionally wholesome. The animation style is beyond adorable. If you've seen it, Susie is by far my favorite character. You would like this if you liked, specifically in the Studio Ghibli catalog, if you liked My Neighbor Totoro, Ponyo, Kiki's Delivery Service, Similar energy to those films. Also, kind of like Stardew Valley. I think if you liked playing Stardew Valley, you might like Summer Camp Island. And it really reminds me of Centaur World, which is another show I would recommend. Centaur World is just the ridiculous, more colorful version of Summer Camp Island. Okay, that is it. Thank you. That's my movie thoughts and my TV show thoughts. And it's my channel. I can talk about whatever I want. I have to keep reminding myself that because I forget all the time. Thanks for joining me. I've been talking for 2 hours and Mary is freaking out because she really wants to cuddle with my husband and I have closed the door. So I gotta fix that. I opened the door. Is it everything you hoped and dreamed, Mary? Pippin's gotten into a habit of sitting under my desk on my little poof and accidentally getting kicked by me when I put my feet up. And at night, it's really adorable because it turns into a little disco party because I have a bunch of not LGBT lights, RGB lights. My goodness. I guess they can be LGBT lights if I want them to be. Disco party.